All right, so we've got a movie called *Malignant* coming out, and when I saw the trailer, the movie it made me think of was The Ring. So we're talking about The Ring. I have my notes. Let's get into it. I like that we get to start. It's almost like the Scream movies, where we get to start with characters that don't show up for the rest of the movie. They serve their purpose, and then they're done. That's not entirely true. One of them does come back later, but for the most part, we focus on people who are not the main characters just to get the story going, and we have this urban legend catalyst for the movie. And at the time of recording, I've just recently watched all the Candyman movies, and it reminded me a lot of that, where one group of characters is very much following that urban legend, and that's how they know about it, blah, 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 blah. And then another character hears about it, finds out about it, and they go investigate, and that's the character that we follow. I think it's a pretty good setup, and it worked, I think, pretty well in the Candyman film. I wasn't a huge fan of that film, but I thought it was well made. I think it works really well here. I like this movie. I like this movie a lot. This is the right kind of horror movie for me, because I find it just scary enough that it's effective, but not so terrifying that it's gonna keep me up for nights on end. No mirrors. No, I mean, there is a mirror featured in this movie, but that's not a big part of it. Mirrors can tend to get to me a lot. I will say, well, I'll get to it later. There is one thing that can get to me a little bit, but I know my way around it. So very early on, when we're following these schoolgirls, there's a scene where one of them goes and opens a fridge, and the way that it's shot, it seems like it's setting up a jump scare. It seems like she's going to shut that fridge and something is going to be there, and there's nothing there. And that same thing happens again later. And I've said before, I'm not a fan of jump scares in most cases, and so I like it when a movie will do something like this, where it will set up what seems like an obvious jump scare and then not do it. Because what that tells me is one of two things. Either this movie is not going to rely on jump scares and it wants me to know that. Or, if it is going to rely on jump scares, it's not going to be every single time. Which means it might still be effective. Because generally one of the reasons I don't like jump scares is because they can be very easy to see coming when they're not done well. So by setting up fake ones, so it's the boy who cried jump scare, right? We spot them and we say, okay, well, that hasn't happened in the oh my gosh, it happened this time, right? That's not how this movie handles it. It just doesn't rely on jump scares, which is good also. But I like it when movies tell me that, hey, we're not going to be like that thing that you don't like. We're gonna be better than that. I like that we just jump into the story. It's very vague. We don't know what's happening. Like I said, we have this urban legend driving the story. We don't start it with some really long voiceover or some narration or weird, animated history of the curse and blah, 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 blah. I feel like that's done a lot now these days. And I know that for me, I find it difficult when all of the information dump is at the beginning, and then we get to, like, the big climax towards the end, and I'm like, did they explain this? Did they explain why it was blah, blah, blah? And I tend to forget that stuff that happened literally before anything else. I much prefer it when it just starts vague, and we find out the things that we need to find out, but they don't go in and explain every single detail. In supernatural horror films, you don't need to explain every detail, and that's fine. And I wish more movies understood that. At one point, she's talking about her son, Aiden, with this teacher, and she says something about finding daycare for him. And I'm like, how old is this kid supposed to be? Because generally, when I hear the term daycare, I think of kids that are not yet in kindergarten, right? I guess I think of it almost, I'm sorry, my eye itches. I think of it almost interchangeably with preschool. But I'm like, well, I guess there is, a market doesn't seem like the right word, but there's a business for kids to have supervision from when school is done, but before the parent gets home. So that's probably what she's talking about. But like, I would call that a babysitter, but I guess that's someone coming to your house and maybe she's looking for some type of center to take him to. I don't know. It threw me off because I was like, this kid doesn't seem like he's, pre-kindergarten. He seems like he's maybe like 8. I don't know, 7 or 8. Has no effect on the movie moving forward. I don't think it's a problem. It was just kind of confusing. Okay, so the one thing in this movie that has the potential to get to me in a way that I don't like is the facial distortion. I think I've talked about this in other videos. Facial distortion is just one of those things that gets me, even if it's not done particularly well. It freaks me out, and so I watched this movie in the morning with the lights on, with my dogs right next to me. But I've seen this movie plenty of times before, so I knew what to expect. But this movie has the 2 shots of the 2 victims, the cousin and then the baby daddy, where their faces are very much distorted. And I have seen this movie enough that I just know when to look away, how long it lasts, and when to look back. You can tell based on the sounds when it's over and stuff like that. So I can enjoy most of this movie because I know when to turn away. But the first couple times that I watched this movie, there's like no warning for those. Like after you know where it is, you can plan for it, but it's not like there's a slow build up to it. There isn't a second one, kind of, when she finds the baby daddy, but there's still kind of a quick cut when she actually goes to turn him. But the first several times, the first few times that I watched this movie, that very much stuck with me. And that's the kind of thing that, I'll be laying down to sleep at night and I'll close my eyes and I'll see that in my head. It just gets with me. Facial distortion, mirrors, and most kind of ghost things. But it's weird because even though this is a supernatural movie about a ghost, it doesn't get to me like, cause I guess because she's not a demon. Demonic things get me more than other types of ghost things. So I think that's why I like this movie so much, is because I have memories of being legitimately scared from it because of that facial distortion, which isn't the same thing as being scared, but it gets with me and it makes it hard for me to sleep, right? Which I think can be a sign of a good horror movie. But at this point, I can go and I can rewatch it and not have to deal with that, which I appreciate. So I enjoy this movie quite a bit. So then I wrote down at one point, is this the best creepy kid since Sixth Sense? Because they clearly tried very hard to make this kid a creepy kid. And in my head, the gold standard of creepy kids is the kid from the Sixth Sense. And then I realized later, I swear I didn't realize this before I wrote it down, the box literally says the best scary movie since the Sixth Sense. I'm like, huh. I wonder if they picked up on the creepy kid too, and that's why they put that there. I don't know. It's not really thematically similar to the Sixth Sense, so it seems weird that that's what they would compare it to. And even though the Sixth Sense is a ghost story, it's not a horror movie, I wouldn't say. It's not scary, whereas this one is intended to be a horror movie, so I found that kind of odd. But interesting that I wrote something very similar. Okay, so if you've seen this film, you know that a lot of it deals with VHS tapes and the mechanics of how those work, and machines that can, not literally, but metaphorically dissect them and get to all the stuff and blah, 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 blah. And so I wonder if young people watching this for the first time that have no experience with VHS tapes, I wonder if that's going to affect their takeaway from the movie. I wonder if that's going to affect their experience if they don't know really what that piece of media is, right? Does the fact that I have experience with VHSs and I understand that sometimes they're static and sometimes they're tracking, and normally that's fine, but what if it's not fine, right? And there's that thing where it takes everyday things and makes them seem creepy, like flies or ladders, or right, different things like that, horses. And I think a big part of that is the VHS tape. And when you have that experience of, oh my gosh, wouldn't that be, especially when this came out, DVDs, I think, were coming into play by then, 2002. I don't know the exact dates offhand, but when this came out, VHS tapes were still very much a thing. So that's going to help this movie stick with you if you watch it, and then you're going to play an old VHS tape, and there's weird static, and there's tracking issues and things like that, right? You're going to think of this movie. So I wonder how that affects someone that has never had any experience with VHS tapes, or maybe doesn't know what they are, or understand what they are. And it makes me wonder, like, you know, if this was, instead of a VHS tape, if it was, you know, an 8-track or something, you know, some outdated form of media that I've never had experience with, but I know what it is, and I know what its purpose was. Would that be enough for me to be invested in the story? I don't know. But I wrote down later on, a lot is based on the analog nature of the VHS. I would be interested in seeing a digital version. So they talk about how there's more to the frame than what you see on screen, and like different ways to try to get there. And you know, they're making copies and stuff like that. Making copies. But it, you know, it's very much, they got these hilariously huge machines for working on VHS tapes, and it's just like, wow, that's very, very different than how people work on digital media. So I don't know if there's officially a reboot in the works for this or not. I know people have said that they're working on crossing this over with The Grudge, but if they ever do this again, like, and there was one in 2017, which I will be getting to, so maybe that one answers it more. I don't remember if I've seen that one or not. But I would be very interested in seeing this kind of a story from a digital perspective. And I think that would make it a lot more appealing to younger audiences now. And I feel like more of the audience could follow what they're doing. Even if you don't understand how, you know, digital video editing and all that stuff works, you can be vague enough and just be like, oh, well, they're using the computers to look into this, right? Like, I think people get that. So if it hasn't been done yet, I would be interested in seeing that. And if it has been done yet, then I look forward to watching that movie. So then, just another thing that I'm like, if they did this new, and again, maybe this has already been done, but part of the curse is that after you watch the video, you get a phone call. And I'm like, what would that be now? Right? Most people have cell phones. Would they just call your cell phone? Because people don't answer the phone when they don't know what number it is anymore. Right? And at one point, she's got a message on her answering machine, which she deletes, which I know we have voicemail, but like, we don't use answering machines anymore. I know some people that just, they don't listen to their voicemail. If you leave them a voicemail and expect them to call you back, they're not going to. You have to call them back again, or not call them back, contact them another way. So I'm just like, if this was done now, you know, would Samara be texting them? Would she be sending Snapchats? Would she make a little TikTok dancing at the TV screen? Like, I'd be curious to see how far you could take that seriously in a real movie. And I wonder if someone has done it in like a scary movie, like parody type movie, where Samara is, you know, sending you I don't know, a Tinder message or something. You know, it's like, does it differ based on the person? Is it something that they're gonna watch? Because, you know, a lot of people use Twitter. I don't use Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that. So for me, if the ghost wanted to get my attention, it would be on Facebook, right? But some people don't use Facebook, so it would have to be something else. So yeah, I find that concept humorous, and I would be interested in seeing it explored both in a humorous fashion, but also in a serious fashion to an extent. I stopped taking notes for a while because I was just watching the movie, because it's a good movie. I like it. I wrote down flies at one point, so like I said, the idea of taking something mundane like flies and making them creepy. And then my last note is crawling out of the TV. Pretty good visual. I think that's one of the things that sticks with you from this movie. That's not something that I've seen in a lot of other things, which granted, I'm not a huge horror aficionado. So maybe it has been done in other things. But, like, I know it's been parodied, you know, in things like Family Guy and stuff like that. But, like, if someone tells me about something coming out of the TV, specifically a person crawling out of the TV, my brain is going to say, like in The Ring, like that's tied to this movie now. But I have seen, I don't remember if this was the joke that Family Guy made or if it was someone else, but it's like, you know, what if it's a small screen, right? Right? Again, if it's done in the digital age, what if someone watches it on their phone? Which I guess she doesn't come out from the video that you watch. She just came out of the TV at the end. But he hadn't just watched it, so maybe it wouldn't exactly be like that. But, you know, if she came out of the phone, would she be really tiny? If she came out of I've heard someone say, like, a Jumbotron at a sporting event, would she be huge? Or, like, a movie theater, would she be huge? Does she have to wait until you're near enough to a screen that's going to fit the appropriate size for her to be properly proportioned? Again, I would be interested in seeing serious takes on that to an extent, and then humorous takes on that past that point. And I think that's really interesting that trying to think of this movie, this plot, in a modern setting has both legitimate routes that you could take and also humorous routes that you can take. I think that's fairly unique. Usually something is either stupid, so you just want to do a humorous take, or it's serious and you could like maybe make a joke about it, but not much past that. I feel like you could do an absolutely straight remake and also an entire full-length parody just full of jokes and different things about it. And I think that's pretty unique. So that's what I got to say about The Ring. Like I said, I like this pretty well. The plan is to do the short film, which is called Rings, and then The Ring 2, and then the third film, which is also called Rings. I know I've seen some of those before. I don't remember which ones I have and have not seen. I don't remember if they are connected or not. So we will find out together. Not really. I will find out, and then maybe I'll mention it, or maybe I'll forget, and maybe you already know. But I will find that out. Feel free to come back and check out the rest of those videos. But those are my thoughts on The Ring. Let me know what thoughts you have, but that's everything that I have. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day. Hey everybody, Sam Tom here. Just wanted to let you know that I have 2 channels. If you're watching my music content, I also have a movie channel where I talk about movies and TV shows. If you're watching my movie content, I have a music channel where I do song covers, instrument demos, things like that. So feel free to check that out. Obviously, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that YouTube stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.